This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Rogan Mei, who is an indie folk artist here in Simcoe County. Rogan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jeff?
Good. You're the first indie folk artist to come on the show, so I'm interested in that. I know nothing about indie folk music, and you seem like a young guy. I'm putting you somewhere in your 20s. How does a guy in his 20s become an indie folk artist? So let's start right off from the top. Things that we want people to know. This is your business. You started a business, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. When did you start it? What is it exactly?
So what I do, I kind of have a couple different facets of my business. The main one that I'm trying to grow is my 5-piece band. So I have me on acoustic guitar and vocals, and I write the songs. And then I have a lead guitarist, I have a violinist, and I have a bass player and a drummer. I put on shows, bigger shows with my band right now, or shows where I book out a venue and then I sell tickets and I hire other bands. Most of the shows I'm doing right now in Simcoe County are like solo acoustic acts, or maybe with like me and my other guitarist doing a duo thing at a brewery, or at a cafe, or at a private event, sometimes a wedding. And those I play more covers and mix in my original music. But the thing I'm building is my artistry.
So artistry would be more of that 5-piece band.
Yeah.
Creating your own music, writing your own music, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, writing, and even eventually writing for other people. I'm also a lead singer with the Canadian Musicians Cooperative, which is here in Barrie. I did their showcase last year, which is like a big 60-person production. And then this year it's called Barns to Beaches, and that will be going on tour. So we'll practice starting in about a month, and we'll do a bunch of rehearsals at Georgian College on the big stage, and then we'll start touring around like Ontario. And hopefully some of my original music will end up in that production, because you can apply for some of your original songs to get like picked up by them, which happened for me in one song last year, and which was pretty sweet, because then you get a whole bunch of people on stage playing your song, and it's a pretty sweet experience. But
okay, a couple of questions going through this is very cool. Can I ask your age, man?
I'm 29.
Oh shit. Okay, you're aging well, man. I would put you at like 23. Okay, so that's cool.
That's a reoccurring thing.
Yeah, this Keanu Reeves vibes going on a little bit, which is very cool. Everybody loves him. So, okay, so what are the questions I want to ask here? So, number one, how does one get into indie folk music, and what is it? If you could give me, for the listeners that are similar to me and just ignorant about the genre, is there a comparison out there, a popular song or a band that we may know that we've been, okay, I've heard that before?
Yeah, so you have like traditional folk, which if you think of like Bob Dylan's like early music and stuff, if you've just seen the Bob Dylan movie. And then you have indie, which started out as just as a definition of being like independent of a major label, when like
but now it's its own classification of music.
Yeah, because of the like do it yourself approach and how that affected the actual like soundscape of the music, it's become its own sound. So it's like that cross examination. Now you have indie musicians who are backed by an independent label, so it's kind of like it's
a weird thing.
Yeah. And then as for bands that you'd probably know, there's obviously also a big range of like style just within that genre. But Phoebe Bridgers, people probably know, or Noah Kahan, or a Canadian Andy Schaaf. Those would be people that some listeners would probably know. A Stick Season was like one of the biggest songs last year by Noah Kahan, so people might know that one.
Okay. And while we're early in the show, people are interested, curious, like I want to go to your website or your social media. Where can we hear your music like right now?
Yeah, so you can go to roganmei.com and you can see a bio and all that. You can also go to Spotify or iTunes, and it's just Rogan Mei, or my Instagram at Rogan Mei. Basically at Rogan Mei on everything.
Okay. So we can see it there and listen to it. Okay, so that's great. So another couple questions that come to mind are, first off, how long have you been doing this for? I imagine you've been involved in music a huge portion of your life.
Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was like 12 or something like that. My grandfather was a saxophonist and a clarinet player in the Canadian Army Orchestra. So I actually learned some like jazz chords and stuff early on,
Mm-hmm.
like group practicing with my brothers at a young age. But I didn't really start doing it. I didn't start songwriting until I was like maybe 20. And then I kind of did in my bedroom for a long time and picked up like a gig or two here or there, but didn't feel like I was really maybe good enough to do it like real.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
and so I followed my other passion, which was firefighting, and ended up being a firefighter for 7 years and continued to like practice and improve my voice and improve my guitar playing and songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, eventually it was just like always in the back of my head, like this is my true, my calling. So I eventually, I started ramping up the amount that I was playing a little
Mm-hmm.
more while I was still firefighting. And I put myself back through school to do like music production at Seneca College. And then I continued. And then I've only had the band for maybe 8 months or something like that.
Yep.
But before that was mostly solo shows.
So you're a firefighter, you're a guitarist, you're a lead singer, you got the look, you got the hair. Women out there, I don't know if you're married or if you had kids. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think you're fit for it, man. Let me ask you, is this type of business lucrative for the people that we have a wide variety of people that are going to listen, people that are going to stop 5 minutes in and go straight to your website as soon as you announced it, people that are going to be like, I'd like to see them live. So let's talk about that in a little bit. But then there's going to be that younger audience, or sometimes age has nothing to do with it. Human being out there, male, female, that's like, I have wanted to get into music for X amount of time. I self-justified as to why I shouldn't do it because I have this belief in my head that it's not lucrative. I can't pay the bills, can't live the way I want to live with it. But, there's certainly very successful musicians out there. In my head, when it comes to artistry, painting, drawing, creating things, music, there's always that starving artist depiction in my head that movies and entertainment has planted there, that the majority of them are in that boat. And like becoming an NBA star, every so often 1 in a million gets plucked out and,
Yeah.
scales to the heights of success. Is it a lucrative business?
Yeah, I think that's largely a misconception.
Okay.
Well, it's a misconception that they're poor because they're artists. And they're poor because they probably don't have the work ethic or the entrepreneurship attached to it. I don't really think it has anything to do with what their trade is. You could be a plumber, which a lot of people think, or an electrician and be poor if you're not getting
Very
yourself up.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is this idea that you're like, yeah, either nobody or you're like, Lady Gaga or something. But there's a ton of people making a lot of music or a lot of money in music at all different levels. I was just in like a performance class with a lady, Lawson Studios in Toronto, and she was saying like she has some people she's worked with for a long time that have now gained success or whatever, but she has multiple students that are making 5K a month just doing their music, and that's not teaching music. A lot of people like divide out their music business and do like they teach music or they do that, but that's like just performing. I don't teach either. Like I'm just interested in performing and writing. But there's like a saying, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And I think that's very true in music. There's some places that will only give you $100 for a 3-hour gig, and then there's some places where you can go to and say, I do one set for $100. It's gonna be $300 for the gig, and then maybe they end up giving you $250.
Yeah.
But if you're always the guy being like, I'll do it for $100, then they're just gonna pay you $100. So
That's it. Yeah, I mean, we talk about it in business all the time. It really, I like that you're talking about it. It resonates with me, even though I know nothing about music. I enjoy it, but what resonates with me, where the reflection is here, is the business acumen. We talk about business all day, and just plug in the type of business: electrician, musician, lawyer, whatever it is, and the fundamentals become the same. If you present more value than there is cost, you're probably going to have a pretty robust winning strategy. Just think a lot of people don't know about business. They practice their craft. So we have great electricians, don't know about business, plastic surgeons, dentists, musicians, whatever it may be, even marketers like myself. Business is a whole other skill set. So I'm glad you're treating it in that way. And so is this your full-time thing? This is what you do. Music is what you do, or is still firefighting involved?
I don't do firefighting anymore at this time. I was in wildland firefighting, so it was very like you're pretty much in the bush, or you're. So I couldn't really balance it at all, because you're either completely off the grid or you're at home. So that wasn't going to work if I was going to have a music career. But I also do renovations, kind of part time.
Yeah, on the side.
Yeah, two of my friends who might end up even coming on your podcast, the McHughes, they have a business in Barrie, McHugh Renovations, and
Okay.
yeah, we do all sorts of different renovations. But yeah, I've kind of put myself in a good position where I have a lot of flexibility and balance, because obviously, sometimes, especially in the summer, there's a lot of opportunity, and then you have some periods where there's not as much, right? So it's good to have something else, but probably within the next couple of years, I'll be full time. I'm making enough off music to pay everything.
Beautiful. It's interesting that you bring up firefighting. I actually have my firefighting hoodie on right now.
Oh, nice.
It's my from Seneca. So a little backstory, small little snippet. This isn't about me, but it's really interesting that you brought up firefighting and wildlife firefighting out in the bush. I went to Seneca and I did the whole schooling. It was like a year and a half. It was great. I loved it. At the end, they take you through your physical, so the training aspect, and then your actual physical. They test your eyes, all that kind of stuff. So I'm colorblind enough to not be able to be a firefighter in Ontario, which of course I found it at the end. So when I was considering options, as I just spent a year and a half and a lot of money to become a firefighter, I was looking at wildlife firefighting out west. And when I spoke to some of the people at the stations out there that Seneca connected me with, and they told me about the day-to-day, I didn't do it. It's like you said, you're out there, you're in the bush, and it was like a world away, basically out west, Alberta, BC, those types of areas where they have a lot of wildfires.
Yeah, I did it out west as well. Like I started in Timmins, and then I went to Sudbury, and then once I built up my resume enough, I got into smoke jumping, which is like a super specialized form where you like
What is that? Oh, you parachute?
You parachute in, and then they parachute all your gear in after you. But there's only one place in Canada that does that. So
where is that?
That was in Fort St. John.
And did you enjoy it? Like that's a hell of a way to do your day to day.
Yeah. I loved it. It was one of my life dreams to do, and it was everything and more than I wanted to do. Definitely an adventure. Yeah, I know you're into fitness. I actually just by luck or serendipity, the same like rookie class that I went through had David Goggins in it. So I was like going through this training with David Goggins, and then I ended up being mentored.
Actually with him?
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah. And then
so is he doing wildlife? Is he doing his firefighting out in Canada?
He was. He did it for at least 2 years. I'm not sure if he's still doing it, but yeah, he was working at the same base as me, and we'd go on lots of runs and all that stuff. So
really,
yeah.
Wow. How is he in person? That's crazy. I've never met anybody that's met David Goggins.
Yeah,
he's very intense dude. Is he the same off camera as on camera?
He definitely has that same side. He's not always crazy on, but he's definitely a higher level of person than I've probably met so far. He's very like holds himself to a high standard.
Yeah, I bet.
And very, very gracious with his time. I was training for a marathon at the time, like before I even knew that he was doing it. I was getting into running, and he helped me shave off like 2 hours off my marathon. In like a couple months, we just like every weekend was a half marathon. Every like lots of mornings we'd get up early, and he would go for his run, and then he'd meet me and we'd go for a run, and he'd like teach me how to like. I was good at asking lots of questions because I kind of knew. Some people didn't really know who he was when he came to the base.
Unbelievable that's a thing.
But for me, I had known him through the Joe Rogan podcast and everything for years, and so I was like, "Holy shit, this is nuts!" So I was very keen and like, how do you tie your shoes? How do you do this? How do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd probably pepper him with questions too. I've often thought about it. I got one of his 2 books behind me, and of course I paid attention to his stuff over the years, but I don't know, when he goes up to random people and he's like, work out with me, don't be a bitch type of thing. I'm like, I don't know. I work out pretty hard. The way he works out is insane to me. It's not the same principles that I exercise by. It is more just about let's take our body to the brink and hopefully it doesn't break. It's the way it seems to be with him. And it's just
the mind. He's all about the mind. He's all
right.
like
callousing the mind, right?
He does it all for his mind, which is pretty insane. He did this and he'd be jumping too, and he had just had like a leg surgery like a couple months prior that he didn't tell them about, or that he wouldn't have been able to even do it. And then but he did this like charity event halfway through the season, and he was gone for like a couple days, and he came back, and then I was getting picked up from a fire, so like the plane basically will come in wherever you are in like BC when they kick you out. The nearest airport usually, or if there's like a massive open field, they can potentially land the plane. Yeah. And then you're all like standing around the plane talking with each other as you load the plane with all the gear back up. And he comes back, he comes out, and I was like, and he just looked so tired. And I was like, how was your trip? And he was like, he had just run for like 27 hours straight, and now he's like back about to go on a wildfire. It was like, dude.
Yeah, he's nuts, man. His mind takes him to places that. Yeah. That's incredible, though. That's a pretty cool story, man. Mm-hmm. What would it be like to meet Goggins, especially out in that environment, to actually work with him, not just talk to him and get him to, sign the book that you bought, but actually work side by side with him in a rookie class? Very humbling experience. When he came into that, he was already a multimillionaire, best-selling author. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what you guys get paid, but like whatever, 20, 25 bucks an hour, 30 bucks an hour, mm-hmm. Something very humbling for him. It doesn't matter.
He lost a lot of money doing it for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of that stuff matters. And I think it's a testament to his character. I also think it's a testament to your character to be willing to do that. I'm sure that stuff wasn't easy. But if we could pivot a little bit, we've learned a little bit about the things you enjoy, but give me 5 things that like really light you up. What gets you out of bed? We know your music. We know firefighting out in the bush was a dream for you. Outside of that, like what makes life more meaningful or less meaningful to you?
I mean, number one for me would be songwriting. Like that's what I do even in my spare time, because the more I focus on my business, the less I get to actually just like write and stuff without feeling like I need a specific outcome that's going to move me forward that day. So sure. If I have time to just like write with no purpose, that's awesome. I've always liked philosophy stuff. I listen to a lot of podcasts and things. I know you guys like Alex Hormozy and a lot of those guys. I find that super cool. And then fitness. And other than that, I mean, honestly, I don't have that many different hobbies, but I try to put a lot into them. I was doing a lot of cold plunges over the winter time. I mean, these guys in Barrie and that.
Lost you there for a sec, Rogan.
Yeah.
What did you say after the cold plunge?
Not that it doesn't take much to get me excited in the morning, to be honest.
I like it, man. Can
What
you
about
hear me?
you, Jeff? Yep.
Yeah, you can hear me? Okay, because we lost you there for a second, but you're saying you like cold plunges. And one of the points that I like that you mentioned, because I say this all the time, and I mean, I'm in a big group of people. Our team is big. We work under a large organization, which is thousands of people. And then obviously we've met hundreds of business owners, have a lot of clients. So there's a lot of people in this sphere. And, I say I pretty much live the same day on repeat for the last 12 years. And to some people, that's really boring. I'm like, man, I'm trying to get really good at a couple of things. And everything else I say yes to, which I get, there could be some benefit exploring the rest of the world type of thing. But peels me away from the things that I really enjoy. And I feel like at 38 now, I did as much. I don't want to say I'm done exploring, but I did as much exploration, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, that I needed to figure out things that I really enjoyed. And now it's like, do the 2-3 things. It's health, wealth, and relationships for me. That's it. It's like, get my fitness. That's foundational. And I've gone through all different types of seasons. I spent a long time doing cold plunges and heat exposure and these types of things. I'm a muscle guy, so you don't want to do cold and muscle. It's not, they aren't friends. We'll put it that way. But like taking care of the body and mind. That's the health part of it. The business part of it is grow something that, allows you to progress. I think progressing feels great on the mind and creates an impact for you and your people. And then relationships, it all kind of ties into one. The better my health is, the better the business is, the better the relationships we create. And it's all this positive reciprocating cycle. And that's it. Love to read, love to learn. As you can see behind me, philosophy is what I'm rooted in. I really like Stoic and Buddhist philosophy. I don't consider myself of one modality or the other. I kind of cherry pick. This looks good from that. A lot of them are really much the same. I would even say religion is the same as philosophy. It just has a God. But a lot of them are saying the same stuff. The kind of the secrets to living well have been around for thousands of years. It's just up to us to follow them. But that's it. That's it for me. I'm an early riser, go to sleep pretty early as well. I like getting the body and mind stuff in the morning, work a long day, and have the privilege to do this kind of stuff. But one of the things we really like talking about is, and I see a lot of these guys doing it now as well, which is great. Hermosi, we'll see it on the Rogan podcast. You'll see a few of these guys. Goggins talks about it, Andrew Huberman. But I don't think we've reached the limit of talking about it enough. I think we should continue to expand it, is going through difficult things. There are a lot of people out there that want to be business owners. And before they are a business owner, if they come from being an employee, which I think, 70 to 80% of entrepreneurs come from being an employee first, they think, I have no autonomy as an employee. I have to be here. I can't take vacation when I want. My salary is capped. I'm a round peg in a square hole and I can't get out. And I get that. You feel trapped in many cases. So you think starting your own thing will be, I'll have autonomy. I can do what I want. I can set the rules. My pay has no ceiling. So they're thinking about the rewards because they don't know what the day-to-day looks like. I went from being an employee to being a business owner at 23, and I've never worked harder in my life, although I can take vacation whenever I want. I rarely do. And you're problem after problem after problem after problem. It's way harder than being an employee, basically. So music is not something that we commonly come across. It's not like there's a million music businesses out there like there is dentists. And again, I keep referring to these same industries because they are so saturated. So let's talk about something that was difficult for you to go through that could resonate with the audience. Give them an insight into your experience, your journey a little bit. And then I like to ask it this way. Sometimes we are forced to go through hard things, like COVID wasn't a choice. You couldn't not go through it. We all went through it. But then there's also voluntarily choosing to open that fearful door. It's in front of you. You could walk the other way. And I think that has even more impact on us when we choose to walk into kind of the dragon's lair type of thing. But ultimately, the thing that we're trying to get here is, why go through hardships? When we ask this 300-400 podcasts, and we find out that the learning on the other side was integral to that person's growth or integral to molding that person's character. This is the message that we're getting to. So whatever you're comfortable with sharing, personal or business, something that was really fucking hard to get through and but made you better on the other side.
On the external things that I didn't have a choice with, when I was young, I was like maybe 12 or 13. My mother had a basically at my oldest brother's, after his grade 8 graduation, she basically went into cardiac arrest out of nowhere and ended up needing like multiple heart surgeries, ended up having a heart transplant. So that was like a very difficult time for my family. And that had a lot of impact down the line for me, because at the same time where a lot of kids were just like riding bikes, and I rode bikes too, but I'd be spending like a lot of time in the hospital in Toronto General and seeing all these people. We didn't have that much money at the time. So
you were how old?
I was like 12, between like 12 and 15 is when most of like those surgeries happened. And I remember we couldn't afford to like stay in hotels in Toronto, but my mom was like, couldn't leave the hospital. She basically had a battery running her heart for like months. And so since we were there all the time and they knew our situation, there's like a floor of this hospital that was just like lights turned off, like they weren't using it at all. And they let us stay there. So I remember one March break, we spent the whole March break, like we just lived in this, like this whole floor of Toronto General Hospital that was like shut down. And then we'd be able to spend more time with my mom. But then you'd also see, she was like on the level where like, okay, these people are basically dying. She was like, to be number one on the heart transplant list is like, there's a huge line, and it's basically like, yeah, you're very close to death. And so seeing all that really had an effect on me, where I was forced to like think about death and stuff younger than probably most people do. And I think that in turn led me to really want to, like, the dreams that I have and stuff, to really want to actually like take action on a lot of those things, because I would see people who some of them weren't that old, who'd be, walking around the floor with a machine that's like helping them breathe their oxygen because they can't do it. So yeah, that had a big impact. And just, yeah, like you were talking about Stoic philosophy, like having to think a lot about those kind of terms, look up at the stars and like wonder, what's going to happen, and like how small you are, how like fragile everything is. That's such a young age, probably impacted my art and just my whole like outlook on life, I think.
Death is an amazing thing. Like, I have all my rules for life inked onto my skin. I say I take life very seriously so that I can enjoy the heck out of it. But for me, it was busting my legs, and then painkillers were just brutal. And that was my first brush up with death. People were passing around me, friends at a very early age. There was a year where there's just seemed like a funeral every 4 or 6 weeks, something like that. And so that was my wake up call. And Stoics, especially Buddhists for sure, they meditate on the fragility of life, their morality. And I think a lot of us, we look at the past being an indicator of the future too much. It's like, well, I lived yesterday, so I'll live today. I lived the last 10 years, so I'll live another 10 years. People in my family live to 80, 90, so I will. And therefore, the dreams that I have, if I don't get them today, it's no problem. If I don't ask that girl out today, I can get to it. I can become wealthy in my 40s, even though I'm 30. But none of that is really true, right? There's something beyond my control out there that allows me to wake up in the morning. I mean, whatever it is, if you want to believe in God, creator, universe, whatever it is, much more powerful than I am, controls time in ways that I can't. And if it decides for whatever reason that an asteroid's going to come through the atmosphere and take out Canada in 10 minutes from now, that's what's going to happen. And there's nothing I can do about that. So for you to see that at a young age, I would not be shocked at all if it molded a big part of your motivation, what you think about, how you create from that. And I'm really happy you took it that way. Not everybody does. Some people are like, beats them down. These negative situations, trauma, and it starts making their life less than, rather than being like, I don't want to be this way. I don't know how much time I have, so I'm going to do the things I want to do now.
Yeah, I was just at my buddy's house who's a structural firefighter. And I have a lot of firefighter friends and paramedic friends. And like you said, trauma affects so many people in different ways, mainly because of how like they've framed that in their mind. And there's people, my friend Stu seems to take it very well. And we were asking him, because he's around a lot of, he works in a busy city and he sees a lot of death and everything. And he basically said he's framed it in his mind, both naturally and like supports it, that like he's just getting an inside view, like a behind the curtain view of what's already happening every day and what's always happened. And a lot of that stuff is sad, like young people dying too early, or these families getting torn apart because of this or that. But at the end of the day, it's not like good or bad. It's just this is what happens, and it's always has happened and always will happen, and you're not going to stop it all. So he views it as like he's lucky that he gets to see what a part of the reality that most people just don't. It's not a part of their life. You don't see it. You think it's very rare that a family dies in a car accident, but it's actually happening every day, and that's made him wake up every day being like, I really got to make something happen, because this happens a lot. Like things that unexpected tragedies happen all the time. And that's how he's framed it, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's very wise to look at it that way. I've been an addictions counselor at a great facility called Cornerstone Recovery. From my own recovery led me to that place. You develop skills getting yourself out of hell, essentially, and then you may decide, I'm going to use these skills to help somebody else. Pretty straightforward. But you don't know what you don't know until you go into these places. Like if you go to war, most of us that come on this show have not been to war. It changes their perspective a lot. But it really comes down to, I believe anyways, could be wrong, but I agree with what you said a moment ago. It's how you frame life. Acceptance, huge thing in the addiction recovery community. Acceptance and surrendering to these things, building strong relationships with reality, essentially. It's a pretty logical and robust way to live and get shit done and not take things for granted. I think it pulls the entitlement away quite a bit. I think it pulls the lack of gratitude away quite a bit. And I think you start to look at life as more of a gift. Once you realize, like if you just go into ChatGPT, what are random accidents in occurrence on average per day across the globe, you're going to get numbers that are going to blow your head back. Yeah. And that may start to get you to realize it's like a lot of this is not in my control. So what is in my control is what I decide to do from here forward, who I decide to be. And then, whether you're labeled as young or not, doesn't matter how long you're going to be. So I think that's very cool.
How did you get involved in the addictions counseling? Were you like ever addicted to something and then you overcame it, or you just wanted to help those kind of people?
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning a moment ago when you talked about your mom, that being your real first deep dive into death, brush up against death. Mine was I busted both of my legs in 2 separate periods. The second one was much worse. So that got a really bad dependency on pain medication.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That lasted for about 4 years. And to get out of that, I had to seek out assistance. Like, how do I do this? You go get a mentor of some type. Yeah. And then my life changed so dramatically over the next couple of years. I really dug the community, the raw openness of it. Had never met people more honest. I mean, they didn't care about much outside of being themselves and connecting with other people that are being themselves, because their life was on the line to them. That's how they kind of framed it in their head. If I'm not true to myself, I won't live, is how a lot of these people talk to themselves internally. So that raw honesty and transparency was just, it was intoxicating to me. And then you learn a lot of stuff along the way, and you start asking more questions, and eventually it turns into a skill set. And you go find a facility, get trained, and yeah, it's been the last 3.5 years. And that was 38 now, that my recovery kind of ended, if you want to call it, at 29. And so it's been this last 10 years of really being in that world, and shaped my business. It's shaped every aspect of my life. I think that was the hardest thing I've ever been through, for sure. I hope to never go through something like that again, even though it was so transformative.
Because addiction is so like, it's obviously external in that you're like taking something external, but it's also such an internal thing, because it's like playing on your biology. Like if you're actually addicted to something, it's like there's something ominous inside you that's like almost against your will, you know what I mean? And I feel like, that's such that must be like one of the hardest types of difficulties you can go through, because you're not, if there's like a tornado outside, but you're like, this island in the center of it, that's one thing. But if the tornado's inside you and you're battling with yourself, it's like, that's just layers of difficulty. I imagine it's just one step in front of the other, I guess.
It's pretty much all you can do, man. I mean, dependency often is defined as a physical dependency. Addiction typically defined as physiological and psychological. So the way substances plague on your body, that's your biology. There's some people are more or less resistant to it. Some people are hyper responders to things and they get caught in quickly. And some people are very immune to things. But it's how you start talking to yourself up here that makes it magnitudes worse. Like just levels and levels of more difficult. If you start saying to yourself, I can't do these things without these things, and you repeat that thousands and thousands and thousands of times, it becomes true. I mean, one of the Buddhist philosophies is as you believe, so you become. And I think that's very much true. And so those were the things for me. It's like, if I don't do this, I can't work out. If I don't do this, I can't get to work right. If I don't do this, I can't talk to her or him or whatever. And that cycle becomes pretty tough to beat. So you get your community. You find people that know how to break that mold, and you develop. It can be very transformative for the people that get out of it. The percentages are pretty low, unfortunately, but the people that have a real desire to live, I'll say this, the most successful people I know in my life, about half of them have struggled with some sort of dependency or addiction. And even some of the most successful people out there, athletes, musicians, artists in some way, have gone through their own bouts of that. It's, I don't know if it's a tragic thing or if it's just like, if you want to live your best version of yourself, you have to go through something like this. Not necessarily addiction, but something very difficult. And to be honest, the more I live this life and connect with people like that, it seems like that is true. I have never met anybody that's wildly successful in societal definitions and their own that hasn't been through a world of shit.
Yeah.
I haven't come across somebody yet.
Yeah, it's another like misconception in music and art that I think is super negative. Like a lot of people think that you almost need, like, because a ton of musicians are addicted to drugs and alcohol, and smoking, and it's almost like they think they need that chaos or that, like,
to produce the music,
which is just such like a damaging idea to have in your head. And then they live, when they're on stage, it's such a rush, and they don't know how to like compartmentalize that into their normal life, that they can end up feeling like the rest of their life should be at that peak, or they should be like feeling that good all the time. And then they double down on basically like substances, which never ends well. I don't think a single time.
It's too bad. I don't know if it's too bad or if it's a lesson that all humans need to learn is we have this chemistry inside our mind and it feels amazing when it peaks, but it can't live up there. And you certainly can't do that naturally. You know, working out will give you a little bit of a lift in certain biochemicals, but not much, not like substances would do it. You just have this kind of like chronic, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling positive. That's why I work out, is to chase that feeling. But I couldn't imagine being up on stage. Like, we do a lot of public speaking, and there's certainly that nervousness, the sweaty palms and pits before you get up there. And then you get 5 minutes into it. And now that adrenaline kind of balances out and really narrows your focus. I find when I get 5 minutes into a topic that I know well, I'm like super dialed when there's 200-300 people in the audience. It's the 10-15 minutes before that I'm like freaking out. But no one's ever been screaming my name from a stage. So I've often thought about that. I love music, and I really enjoy seeing human beings take a skill set to an almost unachievable height. Watching Michael Jordan play, Wayne Gretzky play, Ovechkin beat the goals of Gretzky, Tiger Woods, these types of people, these artists, the Queen movie, love that. Watching them play out in, what was the big festival they did for AIDS? I forget what it's called.
I think Live Aid.
Yeah, where there's like a sea of people screaming his name, literally singing in tune with him. I can only imagine that rush. And I feel like that you've been granted a power, basically, that most human beings will never even come close to touching. You need to be even more dialed in as a human, mentally, emotionally, to handle it, so that the minute you get off that stage, you don't sink into this like despair of boredom. But like, I want to go back out there and get that again. Well, you don't have a show for another 2 weeks. So what are you going to do for this 400 hours in between things? It can make the boredom seem so monotonous. And that's why I like things like meditation, because no matter what heights you take yourself or what rushes you end up getting, and your chemistry just shoots through the roof, it allows you to be comfortable with yourself in non-stimulating experiences. I look at it as honestly like a superpower in this day and age, when we're scrolling through our phones constantly, dopamine hit, like just one after another, raising this baseline of what you need just to feel normal. I mean, that's essentially what drugs is, hitting those same chemicals in your head to a much higher degree. And then when they come down is how you feel shit. But they don't make new chemicals. There's only so many chemicals in our mind that can be activated. You just activate them at a much higher dose. But if you are good, just comfortable within your own thoughts, sitting by yourself, you're a hard person to tip off the scale. Remember, one of my mentors said a true definition of character is how you talk to yourself by yourself with no stimulation. You will find out how much you actually like yourself in that moment. And if you're, scratching at the doors to get out of there after 5 minutes of being there, then that may be a weakness you want to address. I couldn't imagine what you guys go through as musicians. I've had some highs, played some pretty competitive hockey. There's been a couple of moments here and there, but no one has ever been singing word for word the songs that I write. And I can only imagine how much of a high that is.
Yeah, I'm not quite at the Freddie Mercury level, but it's amazing just to have people show up to see art that you've made. But it is tough. I've actually been thinking about a similar thing to that, as to like the balance between like having gratitude for those moments when I am on stage and I'm like doing the thing that I put all the work into, and so many people that I like care about are there, and it's like this amazing thing. But then also like almost choking off that gratitude, because it's also living in the high too much makes the low worse. So it's like, where's that balance between having gratitude for that moment, but not letting yourself almost be happy enough that you're going to be destroyed once it's done? It's like
You were talking about Stoic philosophy and the modern philosopher that I follow. There's a number of them out there, but I love Ryan Holiday. I think he's written more Stoic books than any other modern Stoic philosopher. And he gives you just an unbelievable distillation of the ancient Stoics, Romans, Greek philosophy, all different types of people that kind of check the boxes to be a Stoic. And in the Roman era, you would be a general, let's say, and you would go win a battle victorious. They felt it so important to deal with exactly what you're talking about so that their hubris and ego didn't grow out of proportions and they would become corrupt, was their fear. That they would have a person, I think it was a slave, unfortunately, but somebody just walking past them. So if you think about it, you're a general, you're coming back to your camp, to your city, your whatever, and it is a massive parade for you. You're the front horse, your whole army's behind you. People are throwing, jewels at you. Women are all over you. They're chanting your name. You're the hero. Their lives are, basically they're alive because of you. And they would have an individual to walk by him the whole time, and his only job was to say memento mori to him over and over and over again, which was like, yeah, you just won, but you're going to die. You will die one day. So don't become a god from this. Stay humble, stay grounded. That was their only purpose. And that was 2,000 years ago. And I think, we've certainly developed in positive ways. I think it's probably better to be alive now than it was then. But I think we've lost some of those things.
Yeah.
They were smart enough to know how corrupting a runaway ego and things to that degree can be, that they placed a person beside this general just to remind him, you're human. Your life will come to an end. You may lose tomorrow. You won today. Celebrate it for a moment, learn from it, go and, if you got defeated, learn from it, and then just come back to reality type of thing. It's a hard thing for us humans to do, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's like, yeah, like I said, that having like a threshold does help. Does help for sure. And yeah, having some kind of built-in reminder to your day. Like you were saying, if you meditate every day, something habitually that's going to like at least remind you of that consistently, whether that's at the gym or something that you're working into your work day or something, because it is very easy to forget that like your time is limited. Not even that your time is limited, but like your health. Like
Everything.
I got sick like a year ago, maybe like a really bad flu where I was just like in bed and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how good I had it. Like,
All right.
like,
Perspective.
it's insanity. Yeah, it's interesting in that light how so many years ago they had almost a better, at least they're popular like culture topics at the time. Like I've read some Seneca and
It's
Aurelius
fantastic.
and stuff, and yeah, it's like they're speaking at a higher level than we're speaking at about cultural topics that still apply now as much, if not more.
You know
And
what I think it was to a large degree? I think we have it so much easier than them that out of necessity, they had to find things like philosophy. They had to find things to make them good people and make them enjoy life because death was everywhere. I mean,
yeah,
it was just everywhere. Whether you were sick, you were poor, there was plagues, there was fires, there was crime, there was war. It was just everywhere, man. If you lasted to 30, you were probably rare. And if you became wealthy, I mean, it was probably like 0.00001% of the population. Whereas now we have all of our necessities taken care of. Like we're living higher on the hog than we ever had. So it's like, you don't need to find philosophy to live a long life. I would say you need to find something like that to have a life well lived. But back then it was just like, if you don't figure out how to be, you may not make it, is one of the reasons I think they look to it so much. And I also think there was just so much negativity around, like just filth and famine everywhere. It was so easy to let your mind become that way. And I think, the Marcus Aurelius's of the world, Seneca was he was a paradox in himself. If you were to believe his writings, he knew these things, but he didn't always do it. Epictetus, a lot of these guys that stayed true to being a good human through so much shit. It was like that became their professional sport, was to be a philosopher, was to understand it. I think we have it so much better now. You can get away without knowing any of these things. I know for me, I will never go back because I tried to get away without these things. I didn't even know philosophy until I was like 27, 28. And I thought it was like old men just doing stupid, like just talking about theory. I didn't think it was practical. But until my life kind of hit a wall that I couldn't surmount was when these schools of thought came into play, and I'll never go back.
Yeah. Yeah, and those couple little sayings can go a long way too when you're fighting an injury or an addiction or something like that. It is true in that sense. I guess we do have it too easy. And then
push a button and get fed. Like, really? You know, those guys had to hunt for it and still maybe not get a meal for days. You know, we don't get rained on when it rains. We're protected. I can turn the heat on. I can get cool rather than sweating, smell like shit every day, all day. No brushing your teeth. Disgust everywhere. Yeah, I think we have a fair bit easier. But before we wrap, something that first off, I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's not too often that some of these conversations go really deep, and those are the ones I enjoy. But it's not too often that people really reveal the kind of depth of their character and what life means to them, and those types of conversations. I really tickles the mind, I would say. But let's talk about your impact, man. You're 29. Music's your thing. You've already done an extremely dangerous job. You've had your brush ups against death. You have a way of looking at life that I think a lot of people could benefit from. And I don't think a lot of people your age, I shouldn't say know about it. I think it's more known about than it's ever been, but don't act on it like you are. So what is the music for, man? What do you try? I think about impact a lot. I think about a couple of things. My purpose that I've designed for myself is to find out all that I'm capable of. Like the David Goggins, he wrings out the towel. When I'm gone, I want there to be nothing left. I love that idea. Like if my final day comes, I got 30, 40% left in me. It seems like that's all wasted now. So I love that idea. And then through my Stoics and these other leaders that I follow, it's, basically fill your cup up to the brim and then pour it all out to everybody else. Like give it all away, because when I go, I'm not taking shit with me. So make the world a better place by becoming a great version of yourself. Maybe not the best. I don't know what that is, but a really good version of yourself, and then give all that information away to people to help make the next people better, and the people that you're here with right now. You don't have to wait to death to give it all away. You should be building and giving, building and giving, building and giving. And so that's why I do all this stuff. Why do you do your music? What do you want it to mean?
I'd say primarily is the impact it has on myself, because there's a lot of different kinds of hard, and like the physicality of the firefighting was difficult, but then there's also a lot of difficulty in pursuing art. There's a lot of grappling with insecurities and stuff, and
mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. And at one point, I found myself, I'd go for crazy runs, and I'd run 20K, but then during the run, I'd be like, well, if you're really being honest with yourself, you're only running right now because you avoid sending like these 3 emails to like get gigs. So
crazy, right?
Yeah, so it's like,
amazing.
Sure, it's hard, but it's not like the hard thing you should be doing. And as I put more into that, I feel better, and I think I'm like a bit of a brighter person because of doing that.
Intelligent, or you mean like your energy? You're more positive.
Energy. Like I think what your internal life, what's happening internally, even if you don't speak about it, is going to get shown through when you're having a conversation with someone, or when you're just walking around. If you're not doing what you feel like you're meant to do, like there's a lot of poor like runoff that's going to have, and then you're just not going to be like a light for other people if you're not a life for yourself, you know what I mean? So that would be number one. And then I also think just like pursuing, if you're into something creative, which a lot of people are, a lot of people in the trades are, whether I'm working with someone in renovations or firefighting, like there's tons of people who are always like, they'd show you their sketch drawing in their books that they brought with them, and they're like an insane sketch artist, or they have like some knitting thing they're doing. And there is like a difficulty when you have when you have a good foundation of one part of your identity, and you're like, oh, I'm a firefighter or whatever, but then you also secretly want to be something else. It can be hard because you have to go through this period of like not really being either. It's like you've left the one thing, but you're not quite at the other thing. And I know that scares a lot of people, and it scared me. So I think being an example of like being able to redefine yourself, or in any, it doesn't even have to be with art, but say you're a mother and you want to go back to work and pursue or start a business or whatever. It's like, it is hard to give up one identity in order to either have both or like change who you are. So I think just because of how my life's played out, I'm in a position where hopefully I can have some success in music and be able to be a voice for that transition. As well as my music in general, I hope has a positive impact on people, and can be, something people get joy and comfort in.
Yeah. I love it. I really appreciate the honesty by, your big point at the beginning was, I do it to impact me. And I tell this to people all the time. I would say, the purpose that I've defined for me, become a great version of myself and then give it away. That's kind of like, it's, I think a lot of people would look at it as like, yeah, that we all want that answer. Like, yeah, you're being selfless. You're making the world a better place. But is that actually what he wants? And then I redefine it for them as like, listen, because of my story, certainly mid-20s, breaking the legs and all that, I found out how pleasurable to the mind serving people was. And it also makes me feel really great to serve myself, working out, meditating, doing these things, even just playing video games sometimes. I really like our business. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm doing what feels good to me. There are things in there, little ingredients here or there that I may not love to do. Like, I don't love, upset clients in our business. I don't like squats and lunges, but I do them because working out in its totality is a net positive. But I let people know, it's like, whatever you want to call it, I'm selfishly being selfless or selflessly being selfish. One way or another, I'm only doing the shit that feels good to me. If helping people sucked all the time, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And
unless I needed it to get somewhere in life, it's like, you can't open this door without helping 20 people. Fine, I would do it. But if it felt like shit all the time, I wouldn't do it. And this is something that I'm trying to speak to a few people about anyways, whoever's willing to listen. It's like, find what makes you feel good and then do that on repeat until you find something that makes you feel better. Because if I die in 10 days and I spent the bulk of my waking hours doing shit I didn't like, and then I died, that seems like a really dumb move to me. Even if it made the world a better place, I'm not the world. I can only live my life. So I basically sacrificed my life for someone that I don't know. That also doesn't seem like a great idea. It's like, why don't we all do things that we really enjoy doing? And hopefully we can check one or all of these boxes. My goal is live exactly how I want to live without doing any harm. Ideally, it's live exactly how I want to live with helping other people. I don't think that's very hard to do.
No. And to your point, I think if it is your goal to help as many people as you possibly can, you're likely only going to have the energy to do that if you're doing something that you're truly passionate about.
There's no question.
It's just draining to do things that you don't like doing. It's tough.
Yeah, it's like, I want to become a great hockey player. I want to become, a professional. It's like, that's you're climbing Mount Everest now. If you can get through that and hate it, you are a stronger person than me. But I would ask you, why do it if you didn't like any of the process? It's like the guys that become pros or in whatever industry, they like the practice because it's tens of thousands of hours of doing it, where your mind's constantly telling you to get away from it because you hate it. I don't know. So I love that you really enjoy music, and it seems like it makes your life more rewarding. And I see that as a great formula for you to get better at it, write better music, make it more enjoyable, and then you will impact more people just by focusing on mastering your craft because you enjoy it. It seems like we really want to simplify life down to like what is important. Do something you really like so that you can get damn good at it and then share it with other people. One way or another, you're going to have to, because I don't think any of us can really create anything without it rippling out to other people. If it's a business, you need other people. And if you love doing what you do, that thing will get much better. And ultimately, those people will be more helped by doing it. And that's one of the reasons why I love these philosophies so much. It's all about building up the individual rather than forgetting yourself and focusing on everybody else, which I did before. And I was shit. And therefore, all the help I was giving was not great. And that was it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I like it, man. How can we see you? People are going to want to ask that question. How can they come to see you? Do they go to your website? How often are you playing? What do we need to know?
Yeah, usually I'll put them up on my website. I'll probably do a couple of those today. Actually, I have to upload some. But
Nice.
If you're in Barrie, I play on Flying Monkeys on the 30th. If you're in Barrie, I'll be playing at Quails a bunch.
30th of April, so a week from now.
Yeah, that's at Flying Monkeys. And then the Barnes to Beaches tour, I think is starting in end of July or something like that, if you want to see the bigger production, which will happen twice at Meridian Place if you're in Barrie, which is pretty cool. And then we'll see about the band gigs in Barrie, because usually those happen in Toronto. There's just a bigger scene for original music in Toronto, unfortunately. Hopefully Barrie will have more of that. But yeah, mostly my website and Instagram is where you'll find updates.
Beautiful, man. Rogan, it was great. It was great talking to you, man. I love your insights. I love the way you think. And I like that you're doing what you're doing. I think you're not the first musician to come on, certainly the first indie folk musician. And I think you have a unique approach. It was a great conversation, man. I look forward to talking again.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, take care, pal.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpwithjeffandsean.com. That's gnpwithjeffandsean.com or call 705-413-3775.